All right, let's do this dance. So I'm Jack. I started this thing called Zap, and I've got two talks here this week. The first one, we'll take a look at Zap under the hood. I've been updating this presentation throughout the week as, you know, Alex, Justin, a few other presenters have kind of overlapped with some of this stuff. So I'll actually be like super direct. We'll look at some code snippets and hopefully give like a real transparent view and aid with some of the apps you guys are building this week and onwards. And then tomorrow I'll talk about our approach to product design, some of the stuff that we're known for, at least with Lightning. Cool. So this is our GitHub org. There's actually some more projects than what people know. It's cool, you should check it out. But we'll just stick to the top one, the Zap desktop for now, and we'll dissect that and we'll dig into it a little bit. So table of contents, we'll look at why not React Native. So Lightning Labs is building their apps with React Native. We have our iOS app in Swift, why we decided to do that. We'll look at how we ensure code quality, automate our workflows, and then the good stuff is our high-level look at what's going on with LND, BTCD, and our backend components that are serving the filters to the light clients. All right, so React Native. So it's getting pretty popular, and these are more or less the typical goals that developers try and achieve with React Native. In theory, it should allow a team to move a lot faster. You should only be able to write code once, and then all features are on iOS and Android, and then it should improve the developer experience, I guess, if you have like a bunch of web devs and you would like to concentrate over React and just build reusable components and such. So these are like the really typical goals when you read, you know, why should I Google, why should I use React Native? This is what you get. For us, React Native is only a few years old. I think it was previewed in Jan of 2015. And that is a little bit dangerous in my opinion because we're already building on top of really fast-paced experimental software in LND. We track LND's head. We're very active in managing pull requests we test, patching things. We did not want to do that for another repository as well. We wanted some form of stability with the stack we were using, and that seemed a bit dangerous because, as Justin pointed out earlier, managing your relationship with LND at such an early state is already a hassle. So that was one of the reasons we didn't really like it. It's a bit too ambitious. React Native pitches this vision of native feel and native performance with web technology that can kind of scale to your website, maybe an Electron app, and then to your mobile phone. It's actually not really the case usually. There's a lot of native development that goes into it. I remember I built a React Native Lightning iPhone app for myself almost a year ago. Posted on Twitter, I paid a bit refill invoice, it was fantastic. But I actually wrote, most of the code was in Objective-C. And I was like, well, this is a scam. Like, what is this? So you do have to find some cute hybrid where your dev team is comfortable, and it's not as what it's pitched. Not to say that there's anything wrong with React Native, and I think that it's a fast-growing open source project, which is great, and there's a lot good about it. But just pitching some cons from our view. Performance and app size are not the same as native. And then lastly, I think this is important, the nature of Bitcoin and a lot of the projects we'll be working on will be open source. It's about fostering a community. The Bitcoin community is very vocal, it's very passionate, very interactive. And with Zap, we don't operate as like a for-profit company or anything like that. It's kind of my give back to the community. And we really want to attract contributors. And React Native right now is really polarizing. Some of the more popular React Native open source projects are like to-do lists and starter kits, and then with Swift you have like Mozilla open sourcing their iOS app and stuff. So for me, I thought it would be more attractive to try and get contributors to a native application. But anyways, a lot of people are like, when Android, why not React Native? A little bit of some transparency and insight there as you guys all choose your stacks. So ensuring code quality, a lot of this stuff doesn't even apply to Lightning specific. This is just traditional, you know, JavaScript, web dev, you know, flow type is nice, ESLint, stylelint, or linters, prettier coveralls. The one I wanted to really talk about is Storybook, because if you take in the context of Lightning itself, it's really important for us to abstract and kind of gut out the components in the UI that we use and not rely on spinning up the app to iterate on our designs. So for example, right now in Zap, we kind of just push out a payment onto the network kind of blindly for the user. Not good. Like Justin said, if there is a node out there that is cornering part of the network and charging super high fees, we're kind of just like, whatever, reckless, whatever the hashtag is. And we're now gutting that out and using query routes and doing it the more responsible way. Now there's two kind of phases to re-implementing this feature. We've got the design side where we like to iterate and craft and give screens to a lot of our power users and get feedback. And then there's the more back-end side of actually plugging it into LND. This allows us to not have to spin up a node. What if Neutrino has a bug? Whatever the case is, we can iterate and have separate PRs, separate issues. It's a lot cleaner to implement. There's another example. This is a totally new design that I'm working on for our onboarding. A lot of Zap users actually use, I can't see that well, that's a shame, use remote nodes and such. So we're doing totally new onboarding, but this way it allows us to iterate on our design and use clean, dry components without having to rely on LND to be stable to iterate on simple UI stuff. So if you guys are building on top of LND or anything that's more fast-paced, sometimes buggy, whatever the case is, I really recommend Storybook. It allows you to get screens out and iterate, quickly without relying on the underlying stuff that could sometimes not be so stable. Automated workflows. This stuff, again, is pretty traditional. GitHub, Travis, AppVayers. I'm sure everyone's familiar. If you are going to build an Electron app, I recommend Electron Builder. It allows for really easy, ready for distribution releases, and it comes with this auto update, so all Zap users can opt to auto update if they want when we make changes, and then Go Releaser to automate our Go projects.
Just Google Electron, it's for cross-platform, right? That is currently iOS.
Oh, sorry. So we're just going to dissect the desktop. So Electron, we're doing Linux, Windows, and Mac OS. So this is the desktop application. The iOS, by the way, if any of this you guys are like, this isn't really helpful, and you want to raise your hand and talk about something else, promise it won't hurt my feelings, I promise. I'm here for you guys. So Renee, I can talk to you about iOS if you're interested, for sure. All right, here's some of the fun stuff. So high level look. So what are people actually interacting with when you see the Zap screen or the screencasts on Twitter everyone seems to love? So from a real high level, it's an Electron application, and we use React. The LND that people are using and interacting with, we have a local LND package with our releases that uses Neutrino, this new light client. We also allow remote LND connections, and then we worked with Nicholas to allow people to drive BTC Pay with their Zap application as well. And then how we talk to these LND instances, we elected to use gRPC over REST. So here's the little table of contents. We'll begin to walk through this a little bit. So Electron is great because I write one feature and it applies to all OSs that we support. It's used by some of the more popular desktop applications, in my opinion. Well, at least the ones I use: Slack, GitHub, Skype. It has a really great open source community. It allows you to iterate quickly and do some cooler things with the UX and UI. I think that Electron appeals to a project that is more heavy on the design, and we move really fast and trying just random things with Lightning and dishing out to users and really trying to learn about this new relationship we're building. And then React allows us to extract our code into these components, which is familiar to everyone, I assume. We're going to maybe be working with BTC Pay on some web stuff. We can take our components that we're using with Electron and pluck it in with no real overhead. All right, cool. Now Zap and LND. This screen, I assume, is familiar to everyone. This is the LND API documentation. And everyone's first LND experience is you go to this website, you copy and paste whatever preferred language that you're using, and you put it into your app, and it works, and you tweet about it, and it's great. I've been working on Zap now for well over a year, and using gRPC and LND, I've encountered plenty and plenty of issues. We've gone through a total U-haul of how we interact with LND, manage its state, and I wanted to go through really transparent dissect of that. All of this is open source, by the way, so the deeper dive will be if you guys just go to the GitHub. But I want to talk about this a little bit. So we now have specific classes that are responsible for, so we have a Lightning class, we have a Neutrino class, and what I really want to highlight here is the state machine at the bottom. So building in LND, one of the really tough things in the beginning was understanding what state the node was in. Was it ready? Was it online? Was it connected? Managing the state, a lot of the logic ended up in our UI, which is irresponsible and bad on my part. Right, so we had conditionals in these components. These components weren't dumb. These components weren't dry. These components contain heavy logic, and when you sprinkle logic all throughout the UI and the application, it gets really messy. It's hard to catch bugs. It's hard to write tests. So what we have done is abstracted this to a state machine at the higher level so that it can kind of beam down on the rest of our application, and our application can be really stupid. And it also maybe even allows us to plug and play eventually with like C Lightning. We would like to support Rust Lightning or whatever the case may be. So if you are dealing with building applications with a Lightning node where you're dealing with the entire life cycle, so you're not a Satoshi's place where you're just some form of merchant or service, but you're allowing users to spin up a node, you're allowing users to auth into the node, open channels and such, and then you have the responsibility of tearing down the node responsibly. A state machine for us has been really promising and really helpful. So here's like a tiny little code snippet. Again, this is all public, but like our init is ready, and then we have these transitions of connect, disconnect, and terminate, and we get these callbacks that are timely. And it allows us to abstract all of this complexity. A lot of the errors we were getting in the beginning of Zap was users would open it, try and open a channel, not understand that like opening a channel takes some confirmations and takes some time, and shutting it down and turning it on again. And we weren't successfully transitioning state and tearing down the gRPC connection and the LND instance, and it was blowing everything up and nothing was working. So being able to have these timely callbacks and rely on a more responsible state machine rather than like in-component logic is one of the big takeaways. So whether you're using React or not, whatever the case is, I highly encourage some form of higher level state management when you're dealing with the life cycle of something like LND. And then so with Neutrino, we actually just spawn a process. It's super simple. This is in large part thanks to the folks at Lightning Labs. But if you do want to package LND into your application and take that dependency away from the user, it's really easy. That is it. Obviously, there's a little bit more detail that's online, but it's really not complex at all. We support remote connections. Again, shout out Lightning Labs. This macaroon idea is great. You can auth requests. So a user just has to pass us all the authentication we need to make calls to your node. How that authentication data is passed to us can probably be improved upon, but point is, talking to a remote node is fairly simple. There's not a lot of method to the madness going on here. And then our BTC Pay connection, I know Pierre is potentially thinking about leveraging BTC Pay. We worked with Nicholas on integration. So Nicholas is a funny character. I love the guy a lot. He refused to deal with certs. So Nicholas creates his own trusted certificate and gives you this string as a BTC Pay user that you can paste into Zap. It's not specific to Zap. If you guys would like, this is what the string looks like, and I can help you integrate that into your own applications as well and talk to you about some of the stuff we worked on with Nicholas. All right, and then communicating with LND. So those are the ways that we kind of host Lightning node and allow users to talk to it. Now actually making requests and receiving responses. LND offers two ways, essentially, gRPC and REST. I remember being on the Lightning Labs Slack. If you're not on there, I highly recommend it. You get to talk to some of the smartest people I've ever met for free, and they're very generous with their time. And Connor and Lalu were pitching me this gRPC thing, which I had never heard about at the time. And they're very smart, and they're saying things I didn't understand, and I was like, yes, like this is dope, we're gonna use gRPC. And gRPC, I then go on to Google's like this new wave, it's king. It hasn't really made its way to web yet, but for services, it's very helpful. It's awesome. It uses HTTP2. Streaming information is best. No WebSockets. Zap uses no WebSockets. Client can stream, server can stream, bidirectional streams. It's very lightweight. But then I went on to implement it, and I basically built a REST endpoint with gRPC. I was very dumb. I didn't really know what I was doing at the time. So when you go on to Zap, do not do this. I basically have this giant switch statement where I'm handling cases and using this gRPC. I think the point I'm trying to get at is one of the best benefits in gRPC, especially building Lightning apps, is it gives you this native object in the language of your choice to make calls directly from the object. So what you can do is it allows you to embed a lot of business logic into your application where otherwise you would kind of have to outsource that with a REST API. So for example, instead of making a call to open a channel where Zap has this giant switch statement that's kind of handling requests that the renderer is sending, right within like a form handler, we can have this gRPC object that we are given and blessed with, and we can call like this.open channel right then and there. It's really simplified the code. So I think that's one of the big pluses of gRPC. And you know, for our Swift, obviously this isn't specific to JavaScript. In whatever language, gRPC has lots of support for all languages. And really leverage that as you dig through the Zap code base. That's a mistake I made that in the process of fixing, but I wanted to point that out. Oh, what's up, dude?
So you said that gRPC has a demand thread that you're building using Electron. Does Electron support gRPC natively somehow?
Yeah, I meant that it hasn't made its way to the web, like using like web apps don't really use gRPC. The open source support and libraries to integrate it into web service is not, but for services like LND, there's plenty of support. JavaScript, Objective-C, all the main languages are supported.
That's what I was curious about. Is that is being able to use gRPC in a web context enabled by Electron, or
no? All right. So for managing LND and BTCD, we continually track head and manage our own LND fork. Not because I'm like in the trenches writing test AMP, implementations or anything like that. But we'll get to it. We wrote this thing called LND binary, and we patch and test PRs that affect Zap. So for managing our own LND fork, LND, again, it moves really fast, and the time span between stable releases is sometimes many months, which doesn't seem like a long time for a regular project, but for something that moves as quick pace, that's fixing bugs, and that's releasing really important features, it's important for us to be able to release on our own schedule. It's important for us to have pre-built binaries that don't depend on other devs. A lot of this stuff, we think it's very beneficial to have our own LND fork. There's a lot of test experimental flags that are released in LND when you look through the PRs and such, and we want to test that out. We have a lot of users, and we're pretty influential in trying things like Neutrino and such, and we didn't want to have to wait for other schedules. So if you are dealing with a project where you're looking to embed LND into the application, I highly recommend maintaining your own fork. I think it's been great for us. How we actually package LND into Zap. So my co-maintainer of the project, Tom, built this awesome project LND binary. It allows you to install LND from NPM. So NPM install LND binary, and then you can see that example there. Now how this is really beneficial is in our package.json config, we can make specific LND binary configuration like so, binary version in the site where we're going to fetch from. We then have a script that's as simple as this. Have a little install function, then for all of the OSs we support, install, and then when I run something like yarn package, which we have automated for every single merged commit, we just go fetch LND. So if there is some experimental flag or some PR that we'd like to test and give out to our power users to test some new Neutrino PR or some whatever the case is, it's really automated, easy. LND binary goes and fetches it for us. It's not such a manual process. So if you are looking to embed LND, definitely leverage this process that we've made. It's all open source and it's really easy. And then, yo.
So does that set up a Go runtime on behalf of the user, or is that
Can you speak up a little bit?
Yeah, does that set up a Go runtime for LND if the user doesn't have it previously installed, or does the user configure a Go runtime?
The user needs to configure Go runtime. And then for backend components, so Zap, we are allowing users to use LND as a light client. So this is not on mainnet. There's a recent blog post about Neutrino, which is pretty sweet. But we need to serve these filters to our users now. Also, like the P2P network there aren't a lot of BTCD nodes that support this anyway and are on master with whatever Lalu's hacking on. So we like to be on master, test this as long as it's testnet, #reckless. This is what we use, BTCD, LND, Docker, Kubernetes, and Google Cloud. We've automated some of that. Again, all open source. If this is of interest to you, definitely tap me on the shoulder and I'll be happy to walk you through it. And yeah, this is where you can find us. At the very bottom, we now support a ton of languages. You can either follow us on Twitter or translate Zap into simplified Chinese, whatever, whatever you want. But cool, yeah, thank you. Yo.
Your state machine, does that live in your Redux producers, or how are you managing that?
No, totally separate. So it's like it just lives within this class that we then go access.
And for your end-to-end testing, are you going as far as running all of the binaries in Mac?
The testing is a totally separate issue that I didn't present because I don't really have anything like good to say about how we've done it. Just being totally honest with you. End-to-end testing and incorporating tests like so has been tough, and we're working on it. I can talk to you. I'd be happy to sit down with you and tell you what I've done wrong so you don't do it. But yeah, I had nothing to present that could be taken as advice. So.
Cool. Have you been running into many issues maintaining state between the state machine and Redux?
No. So let me go back to the state machine. So the state machine is really supposed to just be more managing when LND and the application is ready and then when it's connected, and more responsible for responsibly connecting and tearing down the gRPC connection and the LND spawn instance itself. So like Redux, we're just using to like manage data state, right? Like whatever channels or payments or whatever. So managing different state, this is more of a higher level, so they don't really ever overlap.
This is less of a technical question, and not to sound pessimistic at all. I'm actually genuinely interested
Sure.
in building a space. Do you have like plans to somehow monetize that? Or like, how could you see this being a business?
Yeah. The short answer is no. How much time? I have time, yeah? Sweet. All right, short answer is no. Zap, from when I first wrote a blog post like, hey, this is what I'm interested in doing if anyone wants to help, was more about leading by example. And Lightning to me is ushering in a new era that will establish a different relationship with the end user that they have with Bitcoin. And Zap was more open source. I wanted to do the right thing. It has morals as a project. And I don't like the outside influence of turning profit or answering to investors. So short answer is no. Like, we've gotten a ton of offers of people that want to acquire Zap, more so probably for like the brand and such. But like, I have no real monetization plans. A lot of the people that work on it, I just fund out of pocket. I'm really happy with what Bitcoin's done for me, and it's kind of just my thing to give back. But I can talk to you about some of the stuff that people have run by me in conversations I've had. If you are looking to have your project turn into a business, I have some insight there, but I'm not really looking to go that direction.
So a lot of modern apps nowadays are using the Electron route. So you have Slack, you have Disco, you have Hyper, all of these other apps. A lot of them are very CPU heavy and memory heavy. Have you had any issues with Zap? When users complaining about how it's slowing down, or because you're essentially running Chromium in all of those, an instance of them. So have you had any issues with that?
Yes. But it was intensified when LND was really young too. because LND was eating away at everything back in the day. There's been a lot of optimizations, and it's actually been great. So since, I'm trying to think, I think since the 0.4.2 LND release, we haven't had any issues. Not to say that LND is also fixing some of the cons that come with using Electron, but users don't notice, and we haven't had such complaints. Those are very valid concerns in building with Electron. But it was a huge issue because basically Electron and LND was just eating everything alive. And like if you turned on autopilot or something that wasn't tested very well, it would just blow the whole machine up. But now that LND is fairly stable, we've optimized a little bit on our side. No real complaints over the last, I don't know, since this spring.
So, you know, we're in this weird space of Lightning, you have like direct access to funds, like hot wallets basically that you can send anywhere. Do you guys have like I guess an easy way to monitor all the dependencies you guys have for security vulnerabilities that are published and like a streamlined process there? Because I can just, like looking at the presentation, it seems like there's a ton of dependencies going on that's very hard to reason about.
Yeah. So, yeah, no doubt. Right now, it's manual. It can be streamlined though. I know Lightning app, the Lightning Labs one, uses Greenkeeper, I believe it's called, which will open PRs on your behalf when there is some security update that's necessary for a lot of these dependencies. We haven't yet implemented it. So yeah, for us, it's manual at the moment, but certainly on the to-do list. Like one of the things that needs to happen before we have a mainnet release where someone's like, oh, I'd like to put money onto this thing comfortably without any hashtag, for sure. That's one of the things, no doubt.
Does that extend to using NPM as a repository as well?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
signatures to verify that.
Wait,
using
what was
some kind of like hash of like the package to verify that it's actually what you're expecting to
Mm-hmm.
get. You know, in case NPM gets compromised.
Yeah. I think I know. I don't know the name of what they use off the top of my head, but I know Tancred of Lightning Labs has done a great job from that standpoint, and we're basically learning a lot from him. So I would check out that repository. We'll be integrating it obviously before I tell you all to put money on our stuff, but yeah.
Do you find a lot of the state machine stuff gets easier if someone provides an external node? Like, is most of the state machine around managing this node that you're running?
Yes. Also, though, yes, and then surprisingly, not surprisingly, I guess, when you think about it, the state of Lightning today, packaging the node inside the application and spawning LND with Neutrino is really early, like way too early. I mean, even using BTCD, it's like, right? But like, I don't have a choice. But majority of our users are remote node users. Like there's even, the funniest use case I've heard is someone like Justin, it's not Justin, but someone like, who has a script that restarts LND when it crashes or the server goes down, but can't unlock it. They downloaded Zap and have some notification of when the server goes down and is restarted, then open Zap just to unlock the LND and then turn it off. But a lot of users, and BTC Pay, all of the BTC Pay users aren't merchants. Nicholas came up with a beautiful way to launch your own Bitcoin Core full node and LND with a click of a button at like $5 a month. So people are just on Twitter like, hey, I want to join. I have no t-shirts to sell, but I want to join, and then they use Zap to drive it. So a lot of our usage is that, which is great. You know, we like to really try and craft this user experience, and we think it's really important. We don't think anyone in the Bitcoin space is frankly good at it. And so it allows us to interact with the user and show them screens and stuff and allow them to use Lightning without, you know, stuff like Neutrino being totally ready. But yeah, the difficulties definitely come with the spawning of LND and the local gRPC stuff.
You're probably trying to keep like desktop and mobile and somewhat feature parity, but you can't do everything, I'm sure. What are the things that like on mobile you're just like, we're not touching that right now, or that works like much better on mobile than desktop?
Yeah, I mean, what we can't literally touch right now is is having LND packaged on the mobile device. It just doesn't work. So I think with desktop, let me go back to this screen. I don't know how well you guys can see that, but essentially I took inspiration from my Xbox with this. So the way people are managing Zap today, they have like a few different local wallets, then they have some node on a DigitalOcean machine, some in the Google Cloud, then they have a BTC Pay they play with, and like managing all of that is like how I manage like playing my video games, like a Halo, Call of Duty or something. So like we are going for a totally different experience on desktop. I think that traders will use Lightning for more HFT or more efficient market type stuff, depositing to exchanges or whatever with Lightning, and we'll do that on a desktop or whatever, different than mobile. And mobile, we're doing more the mainstream. I'm scanning for coffee. So we kind of separate overall project vision. So under that falls feature sets and stuff are a little bit like totally different design approach, that type of stuff.
Probably got time for one more question. Can you say a few words about keys management? Do you use like BTC wallet, stuff or?
Say one more time.
Keys management?
So we just use, Zap is just a layer on top of LND. So LND has a wallet, and we're just using LND. So we do support, like the only thing that's relevant there maybe is we do support the restore. So that feature is in there. But again, not at a point where you're able to back up channels, just chain funds. But yeah, LND is the wallet that we use.
All right, next question.
Do you do this full time?
What's up?
Do you do Zap full time?
I'm a Bitcoiner full time.
Yeah.
Yeah, if Zap is what calls when I wake up, then that's just what it is. I have been slowly delegating to and bringing people on to work on it. I think that it's still an important project. When I started it, I was like thinking Coinbase or someone would of course build something and then my place would be set and I'd sit down. So far, that hasn't happened, so I enjoy keeping it up. But I do other stuff too and such. Thank you.